We will move now with our agenda to a presentation by Monsieur Nicolas Pictet, the President of Geneva Financial Center, who will shed light on wealth management future in Switzerland. Monsieur Pictet, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Wealth management is growing worldwide because wealth, fortunately, is growing. This industry is, however, highly concentrated in a small number of financial centers around the world, including Switzerland, as Ambassador Fillier has shown. Its activities are, by definition, largely cross-border or offshore for a number of perfectly valid reasons. It is therefore essentially an export industry whose success depends on a competitive regulatory framework and a highly qualified workforce. My brief presentation today will focus on these three aspects. I will address each of them in turn. Let's start with the fact that total global wealth is growing. Over the past 3 years, global wealth has grown at an annual average rate of little below 6%, led by Asia and Eastern Europe, both of which achieved rates of 13%, as the slide shows. The two main drivers of growth are new wealth created in emerging markets and asset growth resulting from rising equity markets, especially in developed countries. Forecasts for the coming years are equally upbeat. This is slide 2. Some experts predict average growth of some 5% per annum, which higher than average rates expected in Eastern Europe, once more, Asia, Latin America, and the Middle East, with 11.7%, 11.4%, 8.6%, and 6.3% respectively. Projections for Europe and the United States are also encouraging, with 2.5% and 2.1% respectively. The next slide shows that China has the potential to become the second richest nation after the United States as of 2017. India and Russia have also made spectacular progresses. Moreover, prospects are also good for developed markets such as the United States, Germany, the United Kingdom, France, and Italy. This may be surprising in the light of the economic situation in these countries. An aging population, the problematic financial state of many national pension systems, and a gloomy economic outlook for the next few years may explain the increase in savings. The next slide shows that growth in assets is expected to go hand in hand with rising profits from asset management. McKinsey expects the industry to achieve net profits of US $70 billion in 2016, with Asia driving growth as usual. Unsurprisingly, given the situation, competition is also expected to increase considerably. I come now to my second point in my short presentation this morning. Wealth management is predominantly an offshore or cross-border industry. All households combined, the cross-border aspects of wealth management is especially obvious in rapidly growing markets, such as the Middle East, South America, and Eastern Europe, with financial centers that are still relatively modest in size, with the notable exception of the Middle East, as the slide shows. This is also true in Asia, where two major financial centers, Singapore and Hong Kong, function as offshore centers for all the other countries in the region. A similar situation prevails in Europe, where Switzerland and London both play a central role, similar to that of the two Asian cities. The share of offshore wealth management would appear even larger, by a factor of about 2, if one took into consideration wealth over a certain amount, which gives access to greater diversification. Offshore assets would also appear much larger if products distributed in clients' countries of residence were taken into account. Traditional and alternative fund and financial products that are structured or managed in the main financial centers are not viewed as offshore assets according to the usual definition of the term, which considers only where assets are deposited. This would tend to show how misguided it is to associate the word offshore with a series of unflattering qualifiers, and more specifically with tax evasion. In reality, the use of a small number of cross-border financial centers is a response to the need to optimize the allocation of savings. The objective, indeed, of every investor is to identify the best possible combination of safety and returns. This combination of safety and returns is available only in centers where large amounts of capital are concentrated, allowing them to offer a broader range of investment opportunities, competitive pricing, and specialized know-how. Optimizing the allocation of savings also involves diversification of risk. This explains why investors often try to place their surplus assets in other countries or currencies in order to reduce their vulnerability to economic and legal conditions in their home country. Protecting one's assets, allocating them optimally, and ensuring one has unrestricted access to them are 3 key elements for an investor. However, the necessary know-how and legal framework are not widely available. This is why a small number of large international financial centers play such a key role in the wealth management industry. Switzerland has 2 centers ranked among the top 10 in the world, Geneva and Zurich, as you have heard before. The third point of my exposé today is a competitive regulatory framework and highly qualified workforce are 2 crucial ingredients for a financial center to be prosperous. In order to be able to offer high-quality services to a demanding international clientele, the Swiss Financial Center needs to guarantee a competitive regulatory framework in line with international standards. This is what Ambassador Fillier has stressed a few minutes ago. With this objective in mind, Switzerland was one of the first countries to implement regulations to control the risks entailed by systematically important institutions. In other words, institutions that are called too big to fail. Additionally, new rules on capital requirements defined by Basel III have been adopted in Switzerland. Our banks are thus some of the best capitalized in the world. A new Federal Financial Services Act, which aimed to define a code of conduct for all financial service providers, as well as training requirements for client advisors, will soon be debated in Parliament. It will also include provisions regarding the required documentation for financial products. This is called FIDLEG legislation. The new law will be broadly based on European legislation, in particular the MiFID II directive. Throughout this process, Switzerland must keep in mind the need to maintain its international competitiveness and avoid the temptation adding a layer of regulatory requirements above and beyond internationally recognized standards out of perfectionism. In terms of taxation, Switzerland will also need to be vigilant. The government already cooperates very efficiently with foreign nations in applying many double taxation agreements according to standards set by the OECD. It also participates in the work of the OECD towards defining a standard for the automatic exchange of taxation-related information. In this context, the notions of level playing field and reciprocity are crucial, as Ambassador Fillier once more stressed. Switzerland must be careful not to sacrifice its competitiveness by being unnecessarily perfectionist. But the regulatory framework is not the only factor. Without its highly skilled workforce, the Swiss Financial Center would simply not exist. Currently, the financial sector employs 210,000 people, as you have seen, almost 6% of the working population. It should be noted that productivity per employee in the sector is twice as high as the national average, according to official statistics. Wealth management is a magnet for talented professionals, such as mathematicians, physicists, and computer programmers, among others. These professionals contribute to two key elements of Switzerland's prosperity: its know-how and its capacity for innovation, which has earned its recognition as a world leader in this area. As a conclusion, I would stress what I would say a careful optimism. We are optimistic for the future of wealth management in Switzerland. Indeed, the Swiss Financial Center is still one of the most highly respected and stable financial centers in the world. But we must remain careful at all times to anticipate the many challenges ahead. The regulatory wave will not recede soon, and protectionism in financial centers is on the rise. Strained state finances are leading to a new paradigm in taxation, which will affect banks and their clients. As Ambassador Fillier said, it's not only the client, but the companies are also now very much the focus of attention by the tax authorities. There is no guarantee of a level playing field in regulatory and tax matters, and this is indeed a big worry. Nevertheless, I remain convinced that the Swiss Financial Center will continue to make the most of its many advantages, thanks to its remarkable adaptability. During this period of profound transformation, we intend to work closely with our government and political representatives to establish an attractive regulatory framework. And I do thank them for that, because this is, I feel a great privilege of this country is the ability to have so close contacts with the administration and the politicians. I do thank you for your attention.